Dragons are legendary reptiles, usually huge and serpentine. In the West, they're often winged monsters to be slain by heroes. In the East, they're revered symbols of wisdom, reign, and imperial power. In European tales, dragons guarded treasures in dark caves, demanding sacrifices from nearby villages. Heroes like St. George became famous for slaying them, a story that symbolized triumph over chaos. These dragons were usually greedy and terrifying, with fiery breath scorching entire kingdoms. But in China, Japan, and across East Asia, dragons carried the opposite meaning. They were sky serpents tied to rivers, storms, and the heavens themselves. Chinese emperors claimed descent from dragons, wearing them on their robes as symbols of divine rule. Instead of fire, these dragons breathed life-giving rain, and instead of greed, they represented balance and cosmic order. Some historians believe dragon myths may have been inspired by discoveries of massive fossils, dinosaur bones mistaken for the remains of giant serpents. Others suggest they came from real encounters with crocodiles, giant snakes, or Komodo dragons. Whatever the source, the image of the dragon spread across cultures, taking on new shapes, but always commanding awe. The Rukh, or Rukh, appears in Arabic and Persian tales as an enormous, almost godlike bird. Unlike the Thunderbird, which brought storms, the Rukh was defined by sheer size and predatory power. The bird itself was said to hunt elephants, swooping down to carry them off in its claws before devouring them. Scholars have suggested the Rukh may have been inspired by real giant birds, like the extinct Aepyornis, or elephant bird, of Madagascar, whose massive eggs were traded in the ancient world. The griffin appears in ancient Near Eastern and Greek art as a hybrid beast, often shown guarding treasures or sacred places. Its design combined the noblest animals, making it a symbol of strength, courage, and divine protection. Griffins were often described as living in distant mountains, especially in Scythia, where they were said to guard vast hoards of gold. Herodotus, the Greek historian, wrote of them as fierce protectors, battling anyone who dared approach their treasures. But griffins weren't always terrifying. In Greek and Roman art, they often pulled the chariots of gods like Apollo, symbolizing majesty and wisdom. Medieval bestiaries later reimagined them as symbols of divine power. So where did the idea come from? Some scholars believe the myth was sparked by ancient fossil finds. In Central Asia, nomads may have uncovered fossils of Protoceratops, a dinosaur with a beak-like face and 4 legs, resembling a lion-bodied, eagle-headed creature. To early travelers, these bones could easily be taken as evidence of griffins guarding buried gold. Whether born of imagination or ancient paleontology, the griffin spread far and wide. It became a popular heraldic symbol in Europe, appearing on coats of arms as a sign of courage, leadership, and vigilance. The earliest references to unicorns don't come from fairy tales, but from Greek historians. Writers like Ctesias and later Pliny the Elder described a wild beast from India, a horse-like animal with the body of a donkey and a single horn on its head. Some claimed its horn could neutralize poison, making it highly prized by kings and rulers. By the Middle Ages, unicorn horn, often actually narwhal tusk, was sold across Europe as a powerful cure, fetching fortunes. Medieval tapestries depicted it as a gentle, almost otherworldly creature, captured only by a virgin maiden. But could unicorns have been inspired by real animals? Some believe sightings of oryx antelopes with their long horns seen in profile may have sparked the legend. Others suggest the Indian rhinoceros, with its single horn, matches ancient descriptions more closely. Whatever the source, the myth endured and evolved with each retelling. The behemoth is first described in the Hebrew Bible, in the book of Job. It's pictured as a colossal land animal, grazing like an ox, but with unmatched strength. Its tail is compared to a cedar tree, its limbs to bronze, and its sheer size makes it invincible. Some scholars see the behemoth as a poetic image, a symbol of chaos and nature's unstoppable force, meant to remind Job of God's power. Over time, interpretations shifted. Some believed the behemoth was inspired by a hippopotamus, with its massive body and river-dwelling habits. Others thought it might have been an elephant, a water buffalo, or even a long-lost megafauna like a mastodon. In Jewish apocalyptic traditions, Behemoth and Leviathan were destined to clash at the end of days, a cosmic battle of land and sea monsters whose defeat would signal renewal. This vision turned the behemoth from just a wild beast into a symbol of divine drama and prophecy. Leviathan first emerges in the Hebrew scriptures as a colossal sea serpent, a creature of the deep whose power embodies untamed chaos. In the book of Job, Leviathan is described as nearly unstoppable. Its scales are impenetrable, its breath like smoke, and its teeth sharp enough to swallow ships whole. No human weapon can touch it. Only the hand of God holds authority over this mighty beast. Christian tradition expanded Leviathan's meaning. By the medieval period, it became linked with the sin of envy, a spiritual threat as much as a physical one. In sermons and moral writings, the creature illustrated how destructive pride and jealousy can be when left unchecked. Some scholars suggest these stories may have been inspired by encounters with whales, giant squids, or ancient fossils. It is a creature of chaos, destined to be subdued by God, a lasting emblem of divine sovereignty over the natural and spiritual world. The Kirin is a chimeric beast, often described with the body of a deer, the hooves of a horse, the tail of an ox, and covered in scales like a dragon. Sometimes it bears a single horn, like a unicorn, while other depictions show two. Unlike Western monsters, such as dragons or basilisks, the Kirin was never feared. Instead, it embodied virtue and justice. Ancient Chinese texts describe it as appearing only in times of great peace or to signal the birth of a sage, most famously Confucius himself. Artistic depictions evolved over time. In early Chinese art, it looked more deer-like, while later versions blended features of lions and dragons, emphasizing its divine power. When the myth spread to Japan and Korea, the Kirin retained its association with peace and wisdom, becoming a powerful cultural symbol that still endures today, even inspiring the name of a popular Japanese beer. Some scholars think the myth may have been sparked by sightings of giraffes brought to China through trade routes. Tall, gentle, with long necks and horn-like ossicones, giraffes matched many descriptions of the Kirin, and their rarity only added to the creature's mystique. The basilisk first appears in Roman natural histories, with Pliny the Elder describing it as a serpent from North Africa. Its defining trait was lethality. One glance could kill, its hiss could wither plants, and its venom could spread death to entire villages. Unlike dragons or leviathans, the basilisk wasn't a colossal beast. In fact, many stories describe it as a serpent barely a foot long, but what it lacked in size, it made up for with terrifying abilities. Medieval bestiaries exaggerated the myth further. The basilisk was said to hatch from a strange egg laid by a rooster and incubated by a toad or serpent, a bizarre fusion of creatures that reinforced its supernatural aura. But legends also gave it a weakness. The crowing of a rooster could kill it, and the mere sight of a weasel, its natural enemy, was said to be fatal. In some versions, knights used mirrors to reflect the basilisk's deadly gaze back upon itself, destroying the monster without ever striking a blow. Some historians believe these tales may have been inspired by real animals. Cobras, with their hooded crowns and lethal venom, fit the image well, and encounters with them could easily be exaggerated into supernatural stories by travelers. The Thunderbird is a colossal, supernatural bird found in many indigenous cultures of North America. It is not just a creature, it's a force of nature tied to storms, rain, and divine power. In Plains traditions, the Thunderbird lived high in the mountains or beyond the clouds, flapping its mighty wings to create thunder and shooting lightning from its beak or eyes. To some tribes, it was a guardian against evil spirits, protecting people from chaos and harm. Among the Lakota and Ojibwe, Thunderbirds were seen as powerful beings of the sky world, battling underworld monsters like the Great Horned Serpent. It symbolized both danger and blessing, echoing the dual nature of the natural world. Even today, stories of enormous birds spotted in remote regions, sometimes called thunderbirds, spark curiosity, with some suggesting they could be survivors of prehistoric creatures like pterosaurs. Whether myth or mystery, the Thunderbird continues to stir the imagination. The hippogriff is a mythical hybrid, the front half of a giant eagle with wings sharp as blades, and the back half of a powerful horse. Unlike its relative, the griffin, which is eagle and lion, the hippogriff pairs predator and prey, two animals that should never meet. The idea of the hippogriff first appeared in the Italian Renaissance poem Orlando Furioso by Ludovico Ariosto in the early 1500s. It was written as a creature of satire, symbolizing something so impossible that it might as well be fiction. After all, how could an eagle, a natural hunter of foals, ever mate with a horse? The hippogriff transformed from a poetic joke into a beloved symbol of wonder and fantasy. It came to represent the triumph of the impossible made real. Medieval art and later stories depicted it as a noble steed, often tamed by only the bravest heroes. Modern fantasy kept it alive, from heraldry and literature to works like Harry Potter, where the hippogriff gained new fame as the proud and majestic buckbeak. The Kraken comes from Norse and later Scandinavian folklore. Described as a colossal sea monster, usually like a giant squid or octopus, it haunted sailors' tales for centuries. Its vast arms were said to coil around ships, pulling them beneath the waves, while whirlpools formed in its wake, swallowing survivors whole. The 13th century Konungs Skugja, a Norwegian text, mentions a sea creature so large it could be mistaken for land, warning sailors to keep their distance. Later, in the 18th century, Carl Linnaeus, the father of modern taxonomy, even listed the kraken as a real animal in his scientific works before quietly removing it. But as with many legends, the kraken may have roots in reality. Encounters with giant squids, some stretching over 40 feet, could easily inspire tales of monstrous tentacled beasts. The kraken's image grew in literature and popular culture, from epic poems to modern films, always symbolizing the terror of the unknown lurking in the ocean's depths. It became a personification of the sea itself, vast, unpredictable, and deadly. The phoenix is a mythical bird associated with fire, immortality, and rebirth. Said to live for centuries before burning itself and being reborn, the earliest accounts trace back to ancient Egypt, where the Bennu bird, linked with the sun god Ra, was seen as a symbol of creation and renewal. The Greeks later adapted this into the phoenix, a majestic crimson and gold bird that lived for 500 years before building its own funeral pyre. From the ashes, a new phoenix would emerge, young, strong, and radiant. The Romans expanded the legend, using the phoenix as a metaphor for empires, promising that even in decline, greatness would rise again. In early Christianity, it became a symbol of resurrection and eternal life. Across cultures, from Persian firebirds to Chinese fenghuang, the idea of a deathless, radiant bird echoed the universal human desire for renewal. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and share in the comments which history topic you'd like to see next.